Very pleasant good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Magandang umaga po, magandang tanghali, magandang hapon, at magandang gabi. Welcome to our Chronicles, and this is Rita Gadi. Over the past 5 years or so, the first 4 years of those 5 years, actually, we had what was called as the Rita Gadi Hour. And during that time, what we did was to come out with the 3 issues that have been raised against Ferdinand Edralin Marcos and Imelda Romualdez Marcos. And every Saturday or every week, at least for 1 hour, because of that Rita Gadi Hour, that's exactly what we talked about. The 3 important main issues that were always being brought out in mainstream media. The alleged hidden wealth or stolen wealth, as it was called then, the human rights violations, and then, of course, the issue on martial law. We did our best over those 4 years to discuss in detail what I knew firsthand, and also supported by the documents I have read and which I have personally on file, so that we do not just speak of them as though they were hearsay or that I just read them, but that I've actually witnessed and I've read all of those items and all of those concerns which I have personal knowledge of. So that was what happened over the past 4 years, and that was practically every week for a whole hour. And then we shifted after that to this program that we have now, the Rita Gadi Chronicles. Again, this is so important because it is still being sponsored by the Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino. And we have the long-standing and very able expert as far as putting this on air is concerned, Ver, and of course Roxanne, together have done everything they could so that we could come across to many of our viewers, not just here in the Philippines, but throughout the world. For the Chronicles, we gave an introduction that the reason we changed our title of the program to Chronicles is because we believe that to chronicle means to record, to be able to state certain concerns, certain items, certain issues that will be recorded not just here on YouTube, on Facebook, or Instagram, or whatever social networking application there could be, but that it could be recorded likewise in everyone's mind as we speak of them. And so in many ways, it is by way of not just in giving information, but also of presenting certain facts as they should be, and all in search of what is the truth. What is the truth, as a matter of fact? And that has been a question which has been raised so many times. There are really no two sides of it, as they say, no two sides of an argument as far as an issue is concerned, but there is only just one side of it, and that is the truth. There are certain truths which are classified as physical truths, for instance, like the sun rises in the east, and you can't change that. The solar system, which has been discovered so many times by so many astrologers and scientists, has had several planets revolving around the sun until it finally came to what we know today as our solar system, within that vast celestial space where you have thousands of other galaxies, stars that have the distance between us here, the planet Earth, of over 1 billion years ago. So as a matter of fact, you have some stars which are still shining quite brightly, but which are already dead in a way, but their light still travels in space, in open space. And then we have, of course, the genius of an Albert Einstein that gave us all of these theories that we have come up with. First, it was just the idea of how the workload is, where you have energy equals mass times the speed of light, E equals mc squared. And that has been debated upon for ages until we've come up to the realization that's exactly what we have used in so many of our algorithms in physics, in astrology, and all other sciences, including psychology and philosophy. But what am I talking about? That's exactly what we want to chronicle. And so perhaps on this day, we were hoping that we could have the mayor of Tacloban City with us, but he has just arrived from a flight from Tacloban to Manila. And so we are rescheduling him for some other day, perhaps next Saturday, if that is possible, that he would still be in town or will be in town for that particular day. And many things to talk about because soon, in just a couple of months, we shall be having again the commemoration of what has happened in Tacloban or in the Eastern Visayas region when this storm surge of Yolanda came over in that particular part of our country and really devastated cities and towns and so many other places and caused a lot of death and destruction. So we would have wanted to have some kind of an update on the Tacloban incident at that time and what it has done since then. Lessons to be learned by other cities, municipalities, and other areas where we have both natural and man-made calamities and disasters and other kinds of natural phenomena that sometimes, and not often, not sometimes, but often times we are quite unaware of, and others which we are not able to predict, like for instance volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. And then of course we go back to whatever the geomapping is all about as far as the moving of the earth is concerned, and that is the geomap that we have all over the country, the fault lines that cross several islands and water systems, and several things that actually affect us as a people. As a matter of fact, whatever has been created as far as natural disaster risk reduction control is all about, they are now thinking of coming up with a regular department which involves precisely that, how to be resilient in the midst of all the disasters that afflict our country. One very important item, of course, will be the typhoons that we experience. One is already threatening the northern part of the zone. Hopefully it will not be as devastating as the last that came across, but that is how it is. We averaged something like about 24 to about 27 typhoons or storms every year. Luckily, if we could have just about 20, but that's it. But why are we talking about disasters when the title of our program should be, Where Are We? Why am I asking this question? Where are we? Where are we now? So let's begin with where you are all located, and that is either in the home, or if you're schooling, you're in the boarding house, or you are somewhere else, or you're in the office, but you are located somewhere. And always we begin with the family, because that is where we all come from. Whether the family is complete as far as parents are concerned, or whether the family is, disentangled in a way, when there are separations that causes the separation of husband and wife or partners for that matter. And then you have the dysfunctional families where you have the result of those who are actually working abroad and leaving the children to fend for themselves, being taken care of by relatives. And there you have, again, as we've always considered and have already been analyzed, the kind of growing up that the children have. So that is where we are when you really want to ask the question, where are we? So how is our family? How are the families today? How are they functioning? Is that the way the families should be? That you have the consolidation of all the different personalities that are present, mother, father, perhaps grandparents, cousins, if they're there, other relations that are also part of the household. But basically, it is the mother, the father, and the children. So where are you located? If you're not located in that kind of a family, where are we? So we talk of this in the sense that from the family, we find the roots, the most basic social unit of any society, of any country. That is where it all begins, as they say. If the family is dysfunctional, the community likewise suffers from this, and eventually the nation. So that is where the growth of any individual and of any social unit begins, the family. What are we facing today? What kind of families do we have at present? When you have, for instance, both parents working, so they're out of the house, let's say 8 hours every day. When you have them abroad and they're there for several years sometimes. And then you have other families that do not get along very well, even if they live together. So you have a toxic kind of an atmosphere. So where are we as far as the family is concerned? And that precisely is why we sometimes have to um, be more concerned of how to restore the idea of family life. As we've said, that is the most basic social unit, the most basic unit in our political system, even before you come to the barangay, which will be having elections quite shortly in a couple of months, I understand. But the family is where you have, I said, the mother, the father, and the children all together, and as they should function, so that the well-being of all the individuals in that household will be productive enough for their own individual selves and collectively for the community where they live. Where are we? Where are the families today? If we do a demographic profile of how they are, then you have different kinds of graphs that could come into play. You have the elderly, you have the disabled, you have those that are needing special assistance. A lot of cases now that we have as far as autism is concerned, are they being taken care of? And then we have the orphans. We have the very old who have no one to take care of them. We have the facilities that already been created and established for the aged and for the orphans, those that were abandoned, children, infants, babies that were abandoned. So this too is part of what we consider a sana pamilya or within the family, but they're not. So again, this is the whole system that we are addressing. And where are we as far as that is concerned? What is it that we have to be concerned with as far as our families are concerned? Because that is where the basic education comes from, or the basic idea of learning what the world is all about. It has been already considered that from even within the mother's womb, the infant or the fetus or the child already receives by remote sensing through the mother the different kinds of emotional ups and downs that the mother experiences, the kind of food that the mother is taking in, the kind of atmosphere that the mother lives in already affects the unborn child. So that is where that basic unit of a child actually begins, that life inside the mother's womb for about 9 months. So that is why in many cases there is a need for prenatal care. You have these health centers that are supposed to provide for certain, not certain, but a lot of input that could be able to help the mother. And then at birth, you have the infant then already in the outside world beginning its first taste of the senses of the mother's milk, of wanting, of crying, so that when it is in pain or crying for something, so the attention that it calls for when it makes sound. So all of this is part of where are we? Are we actually looking into this? Well, we have had health centers that, as I've said, give information and lessons on the nursing and the care of the child. There was a time, many years ago, when infants were being regularly weighed in a weighing scale to determine whether the growth of that infant is as it should be. So, for instance, it is 1 month old. Gaano ka bigat ba kailangan yung bata na yan? At ano ang kailangan na ipakain? Several years back, it was already considered illegal in hospitals to feed the infant with processed milk. It was the mother was compelled or obligated to breastfeed because that is the main supply of the proper nutrition for the infant. And the hospitals are very strict on this, and as it should be. So where are we as far as that is concerned? Well, it's a long way that we can really monitor all of this. So here we are with the progress and the growth of the infant until it is of age that it can already speak, say some words, it can walk, and then its mind begins to absorb a lot of things that will actually be so important as far as its upbringing is concerned. So as they say, the child's mind or the child's senses, the 5 senses that it has, is a tabula rasa, a blank board, a blank sheet where every impression that is made mentally, psychologically, emotionally are actually imprinted, and it stays there in the first 6 years of a child's life until the rest of the child's life. So whatever else comes after that, wala na, pandagdag na lang yon, because the first impressions are those important 6 years. Where are we as far as the care of the child is concerned in the first 6 years of its life? So you could see how important this is. Are we breeding criminals? Are we breeding bad people if we do not take care of the first 6 years of a child's life? That is an answer which we have to look into quite seriously. And even the functions of a child's mind and emotions are all part of that first 6 years of a child's life. So where are we as far as that's concerned? Then we move on to the effects that the family has. So as I've said, if the family is toxic as far as its atmosphere is concerned within the household, then it also radiates this into the community. Aawayan yung kapitbahay kasi nag-aaway yung mag-asawa o kaaway yung anak o nagkakaroon ng bintangan, etc. And all of this. We've experienced all of this in many ways. And it's not just in the household. We have it also within inter-family. You have brothers and sisters also not agreeing with each other and having all of these domestic quarrels in which it would last even a lifetime. You have the misunderstanding between children and parents and grandparents, and this could also go on throughout the lifetime. And so you have all of these concerns and difficulties that are actually within the household. And as I've said, it radiates all of this environment and actuations and different kinds of accidental or actually intentional quarrels and so forth. It radiates to the community, to the neighborhood, and eventually to the street, the city, or the barangay. So you could see how this is. That is why some laws in certain barangays have to be implemented quite strictly. Pag sinasabi nga na bago ka pumunta sa korte para mag-complain doon sa nangyari sa iyong bahay, doon muna sa barangay. So doon ka magbibigay ng complaint kasi po ito, ganyan ang ginagawa, gano'n. And then the barangay officials and the barangay captain will do his or her best to settle the argument or the conflict as peacefully as possible, para hindi na nga kumalat, para hindi na umabot pa for anything violent for that matter. Where are we as far as that is concerned? The local government units are actually part of that entire community of villages, as we would call it. It's not just the city or the street, but the entire barangay itself. The different household. Ang lalaki na mga barangay natin now. Time was when the barangay was just an address. The head of the barangay was called Cabeza de Barangay, parang chief of the barangay. So it was just like an address. But you just don't say the name of the street where you are, but you say, doon ako sa barangay na yon. Especially if you live in the rural areas. So that was how it was at first, until President Ferdinand Edrelid Marcos institutionalized the barangay as a political unit. So here we are with the pyramid of our political system. So the baseline in this pyramid, yung pinakamababa sa pyramid na yan, is the barangay. So first it was the family when it comes to the homogeneous activities of a household, parents and children. Now, as a political unit, it is the barangay. Yan ang pinaka-baseline ng ating political system. Doon sa barangay, nagkaroon tayo because of that presidential decree that created it, diyan nagkakaroon ng first political activities na yung mga opisyal that were voted upon in the barangay itself are the ones that are functioning as the basic unit of government. So if there is such a thing as a democratization of our country, that is it. Democracy could not go any further than that. No country, I think, in the world has something like a village which has its own political component other than what we have here in our country. That is democracy on the baseline, on the foundations, and that is the barangay. And then from there we proceed to the different districts, as they call it, in a city or a town. Kasi malaki na ngayon ang area ng isang munisipyo, ng isang syudad, kaya nagkakaroon ng parang distrito. I think you experience this, those of you who are already of voting age. you belong to a certain district in a certain municipality or a certain city. Where are we? Yun, alamin kung anong distrito ka inside the city or the municipality. And then you have, again, another set of officials. You have them as the councilors. They're the ones that compose what is known as the legislative arm of that particular town or city. And from there, you have the head of that legislative arm as the vice mayor or the head of the legislative council. They're the ones that enact ordinances. They are the little laws, yung mga maliliit na mga batas doon that will be utilized by the administration of the district and of the city and the municipality, and also to be followed by the people. That is an obligation which is both which is vis-a-vis. In other words, the officials and the people have to interact as far as those ordinances are concerned. There are violations, there are punishments, there are a lot of responsibilities. Where are we as far as that's concerned? Are we following ordinances, or we're getting away with just bahala na o baka makalusot? That is possibly an attitude which I hope it is not predominant. But again, as you've said, if we ask where are we following ordinances as they should? And are the ordinances realistic enough so that there are ordinances that could be of relevance to our lives, and that it could help the people improve their lives and get a better way of adjusting to one another? Oftentimes, it is not actually followed. Simple lang, like throwing garbage in the street, etc., or filling up your canal with dirt and sewage and all of this. So that's a very basic sanitation concern, which is not exactly being followed, although there are now laws that are very strict now. We have to segregate garbage. You have to segregate the those that are bottles and cans, and otherwise those that are easily, that, and the one thing also that they've been concerned with is we can't burn them. So meron na rin mga batas tungkol dyan. These are ordinances, and I call them the little laws because they're the legislative arm of a town and a city, which actually controls not just the responsibilities of the officials, but also the responsibilities of the citizens themselves. Where are we as far as that's concerned? Are we following exactly as the laws of our towns and cities are promulgated? So again, all of this is actually leading on to the fact that we also radiate whatever undisciplined action we do, and that is where we try to have controls over those who are violative of the ordinances and of the laws. Diyan na pumapasok din sa local government units, and that is precisely why it has been determined that the police force, which is the one agency that should take care of peace and order, the order and the discipline of the community itself, that is where they have tied up the work of the local government officials with the peace and order, and that is the police. There was a time when the police were directly and completely and almost absolutely controlled by the town mayor or the city mayor. There has been the creation of a National Police Commission. There has been the creation of several other institutions which ought to manage the performance, the administration, and the work of the police. Be that as it may, that is the kind of relationship that the town officials have with the local police force. Again, where are we as far as that's concerned? So criminality is one aspect which is very important in the maintenance of the peace and order of a certain community, a certain town, a certain city. Where are we as far as that's concerned? That's another question again, because lately we have read this and seen on television, in mainstream media, how policemen are shooting teenagers. Two consecutive shooting incidents of two teenagers that were shot by the police. The circumstances are very hazy, but offhand, with what we read, it has been a mistaken kind of an assault done by the police against this teenage boy, and then another one quite recently, again, with almost the same circumstances. So, are the police functioning the way they should and behaving as is dictated by the provisions of the agency to which they belong. Where are we as far as that's concerned? And then we come to how do we go about the basic needs of the people in the community? What are basic needs? Where at one time, the 11 requirements to have a proper village or a proper community would be water, power, food, clothing, shelter, ecological balance, transportation, power, etc., and all of this. So all of this has been defined already as the basic requirements for a community to be thriving, to be progressive, to be healthy, to be well educated. So where are we as far as that concerned? Nako, kung iisa-isahin natin, ang dami pang kailangan na hindi lang malaman, ngunit kailangan pa rin gawin at pagbutihan. Education, for instance, is one aspect. Now we have free education, public school system from the elementary until high school. And then you have all of the perks that go with this. If you're an honor student, you get an additional an added bonus for this, which is encouraging, but which should not be the target for those who are aspiring to be high school graduates. And then you have the installation of what we know as kindergarten to grade 10. Again, many times in the past, I personally have been frowning on this because it has been adapted from some foreign application in Europe, for that matter, thinking that it would be relevant and applicable to our system of education from elementary to high school. And so they've added certain grades with the idea that if you take additional subjects after you after you finish the regular high school, then you could either be employable, or you could find work, or you could be self-reliant as far as earning a living is concerned. But apparently this has not happened. The statistics will show that it is still difficult to find work if you don't have a college degree. And sometimes the additional subjects that are given in this 12 in the 2 years that are added to it are subjects that you do not intend to utilize. For instance, like for the women, is it handicrafts or dressmaking or whatever, or producing candles or other kinds of self-reliant industries or homegrown industries, but are not always it is not normal in the sense that you immediately get into that. It also is a matter of choice. Not everyone wants to have some cottage industry in the home and earn a living from that, although that is very applicable to really being self-reliant and to earn some extra income, if not a regular income. But then again, as I've said, this has been patterned after some European standards, which are not quite relevant and not applicable to the way we are, to our culture, and to the requirements that are needed if you want to get into employment on a regular basis. As I've said, they will always require, some corporations, businesses, offices would still require a college degree or something, at least for a 2-year college course that could be utilized for the kind of job that you're applying for. So again, here we are with what do you do with K to 12? I think what they're trying to do now is I think they've already done this, to review the curricula and find out how this could be more adaptable. This has been done some time back, but then it is about time. As they say, it is always the right time to do what is right. Anyway, so that is just education. Then we come to, again, which is a basic livelihood. Paano ba makakakita? Paano magkakaroon ng hanap buhay? Pagkatapos mo ng itong free education up to K-12, ano ang pwede mong gawin para meron kang earning? So where does this go? And that is exactly why we have to look into the kind of courses that are being offered so that they could be part of the earning capacity of the individual. For example, there are countries that need more people involved in business, small business, and commercial activities, so that they could help the growth of their clothing industry and so forth. Like for instance, there are those countries in Southeast Asia that are exporting a lot of garments. So yung mga courses nila are related to the study of the kind of cloth that is adaptable to certain kinds of designs, the kind of design that will actually be acceptable worldwide, many other things that go into the garment industry. And so the courses that they have are all related to this because that is one of the major exports that they have. Yun ang ibig kong sabihin pagka sinasabi na hindi lang basta nakatapos ka ng 2 taon na dagdag na pag-aaral, ay pwede ka nang makakita ng paghahanap buhayan, and that you could not just support yourself but be able to support a family in case you would want to get married already at that particular stage. So that is where the realignment again of the kind of education and courses that you are taking up or will be taking up related to earning a living that is decent and proper enough for you to survive and to survive well. Yun ang mahalaga doon. There is a country, for instance, in Southeast Asia, sabi nga, when they reach the age of 18, yung mga lalaki, pag abot nila ng 18 anyos, when they're 18 years old, they're asked to make a choice. Gusto ba maging Buddhist monk o gusto mo papasok sa some commercial activity or to follow a career? So there is that choice. But we don't have that here as far as choices are concerned. Hindi naman pwedeng sabihin gusto mo magpare or something of the sort anyway. But what I'm trying to say is, where are we as far as helping our young people who are finishing the 12th year of their studies? Where are we as far as guiding them and giving them the open field of opportunities that they can make something out of their lives by using their minds or their hands and all the energy that they have mustered to be able to earn a living? Where are we as far as that's concerned? And so there we go around and around again to paano naman yung kinakailangan talaga, because I was mentioning 11 requirements and needs that people need in a community, and that is food. Diba? That is so basic. Food. Saan nanggagaling ang pagkain? Nanggagaling sa mga either yung tinanim sa bukid o nanggagaling sa livestock, nagaling din sa mga probinsya, because it is difficult in the metropolis, in the cities, to raise hogs, to raise pigs. Naku, ang hirap magtayo ng babuyan sa backyard mo. First, do you have the space? Second, there are regulations regarding this. Pwede ka bang mag-raise ng chicken, ng manok, para yung itlog makakain mo o mabebenta? Meron din yan mga requirements na kinakailangan, open space, etc. At saka, of course, you need a lot of input as far as that's concerned. So, yung pagkain sa lamesa na kinakailangan sana 3 beses sa isang araw, meron na nutritious enough na hindi ka naman, hindi lang sa hindi ka magugutom, ngunit makakatulong sa paglakas ng iyong katawan. Nutritious food. It's not just, it can't be just tuyo, although tuyo is very expensive already nowadays. But that is exactly what I'm leading on to. Where are we as far as agricultural and fishery products are concerned so that we have food on the table? Ayan na. Nako, ngayon, pinag-uusapan parati at nakikita natin sa mainstream media, at ang ating Pangulo rin ay paikot-ikot na nagbubukas at sinabi ngang marami pang bubuksan na mga kadiwa stores. Ngunit ang mga ito ay nakikita natin na kagaya na rin ng tinatawag natin mga talipapa, yung mga nakalatag, yung mga gulay, at yung mga canned goods na sa shelf, ilan yan na Ngunit kung talagang iisipin kung saan nagsimula itong kadiwa na ito. You know, the very Filipino word of kadiwa is with the spirit. Diwa is spirit. Kadiwa means that you are one with the spirit or one with the spirit. Exactly. Kadiwa mo yan or something of the sort. Anyway, no, that's something of the sort. But that could be the graphical or literary translation of what is kadiwa. Perhaps the original idea of this was to have this spirit of commercialism together with the agriculture and fisheries areas of our economy together in spirit, so that food is affordable. And at the time when this was first organized, the Kadiwa centers, as they were called, we had, during my time, we had to register. We had to fill up an application and our address, and they would issue, wala naman requirements yan eh. Hindi naman sinasabi na kailangan you're a certain age. Well, of course, you have to be of an age that you can read and write and that you can understand what you're buying and what you need. So, meron lang form that you fill up, the very basic form, and then you're issued a card, an identification card that you are a Kadiwa member. This is to prevent those that will be entering the Kadiwa stores from hoarding. Sapagkat yung presyo doon, yun ang presyo na talagang diretso na talagang walang patong. Walang patong doon sa mga middlemen, walang patong sa transport pagdating doon sa tindahan. Wala nang patong doon sa kikitain pa nung lugar na yon because it is government sponsored. Yung tindahan na yon is a government outlet. So mura, in other words. At the identification card is so that you will not abuse when you purchase. Kasi nga mura, hindi ka pwedeng bumili ng isang bodega ng bigas para pagkatapos ay ibebenta mo rin, or you cannot buy several boxes of sardines, for instance. Meron limit yan. So malalaman kasi dun sa fini-fill up na paper, malalaman kung ilan ang miyembro ng iyong household. Kaya hindi ka pwedeng bumili ng araw-araw na isang kahon ng ganito, isang kahon ng ganon, etc. There is a limit to this. Para din sa mga senior citizens na merong kaming libro kung saan sinusulat nga kung ilan na ang na-purchase mo. Although, basically talagang isang percentage lang talaga ang pinapatong nila dyan, which is 65 pesos, whatever. Kahit na 1,000 ang binili mo ng commodities. Anyway, that was the Kadiwa then, which is very different from the way it is now. But then again, there could have been changes that they made so that basic food, whether they're agricultural or fishery products, and canned goods or processed products, could be affordable, and that you could have food on the table 3 times a day for the regular nutritious meals that every individual should have, or every family should be able to afford. Where are we as far as that's concerned? Quite a long way yet to really accomplish the spirit, the Kadiwa, the spirit of having the proper kind of food which is affordable for everyone. When we speak of everyone, this refers to the majority of those that are actually on a salary basis, or I don't want to call it the hand-to-mouth existence, but that's precisely how a great majority of our people are located. Where are they? That is where they are. And so it goes that we have to stretch now where these products, food products, are coming from. And that, I think, is very important. Time was when the Department of Agriculture with the Bureau of Fisheries have something like a mapping atlas. I don't know if I call it an atlas, but they have some kind of a directory, or they have this yes, a directory where you know exactly where the farmlands are, where they're located, and then where the fisheries are. And this is for the guidance of those who go into the agricultural sector, so that then you could find out if indeed these areas are producing enough to feed where the greater majority of the people are, or where it could be done in such a way that they will be located where there are more people, and that where the processing of all of these products will be taken care of, and that it would not be too expensive as far as the transport is concerned. So, yun ang mahalagang tignan. Where are we as far as that's concerned? Well, I don't have first-hand knowledge whether there still is existing that particular zone or mapping where we know where the agricultural areas are. Although we know as general knowledge goes that Central Luzon, for instance, sinasabi nga, dyan ang rice granary sa norte, sa Cagayan, etc., the Cagayan Valley and so forth. And then you have also areas in the Visayas where you have the fisheries and so forth. Capiz, for instance, they call it the fish center, seafood center of the country. Then you have, of course, Mindanao, where you have supposedly the biggest plantations in corn, in rice, in cacao, in coffee, and so forth. And many of this, which perhaps where are we are located so that we know tama ba talaga yung pinanggagalingan ng lahat ng ito, so that all of these other agencies of government can be able to streamline not just the production but also the availability of these products to the urban and the heavily populated areas. Ang dami kasing kailangan puntahan, kung kailangan malaman, yan tanong na yan na masasagot, where are we as far as that's concerned. And then of course, I missed, I wrote this down actually, I missed that part where yung tinatawag na self-help, yung self-reliance na kinakailangan. Kasi maraming pwedeng gawin sa bahay na pwedeng pagkakitaan, which is not only just additional income, but which could all be the source of livelihood. For instance, can we be able to lease, or perhaps big corporations, yung mga bilyonaryo, pwedeng magbigay ng sewing machine sa mga bahay-bahay at tulungan sila sa mga raw products, halimbawa yung paggawa ng mga duster o mga punda ng unan, or simple things that you could sew in the sewing machine na pwedeng pagkitaan. So the input would be the machinery that they need, which is the sewing machine, and of course the raw products, yung mga tela na pwedeng lang gamitin, yung mga sinasabi nga ng mga scrap na tela na pwedeng gawin mga basahan, mga trapo, o kaya a certain design that you could tell one sitio in a community na magtahi ng ganito, ng ganyang klase, and then there will be the quality control. So yan pwedeng pagkakitaan. For every duster na tinatahi, magkano ang kikitaan ng housewife na yun. So instead of just sitting in the sidewalk and chatting, yung sinasabi ng Marites, ano bang huling chismis and so forth, yung pwede nilang gawin. And then of course for the bed, they could also have carpentry tools that they can make. Yung mga, well, there are certain designs, and again, as I've said, quality control for making tables and chairs and desks and certain kind of furniture that could also be utilized and sold. So things like that, it was done before. And sometimes they were extended as mini loans with no collateral except the face value of the person making that loan to have a sewing machine or a small sari-sari store. And sabi nga, when that is being done during the time, I remember Mrs. Marcos started this, Imelda Romualdez Marcos, and she said, mas mabilis pa magbayad yung mga walang kapital on a matter of honor, the honor of their face. They're able to pay yung pagbili ng sewing machine, pagbili ng mga tools sa kinakailangan, yung mga raw materials sa kanilang paggawa ng certain products, mga kandila, and many other things besides. So there you have, as I've said, some self-help and self-reliant livelihood programs. Yung nakikita natin madalas na naglalako dyan, yung taho, halimbawa, yung mga kakanin, yung mga nagdadala ng mga pagkain, yung mga ganyan, kakanin, sa bilao, sa bangketa. In the morning, they go home, then cook again, and in the afternoon, they have it. So where are we as far as that's concerned? We are trying to locate this insofar as our lives are concerned. Connected as it is, not just to a better life, but to a quality life. The kind of life that you enjoy what you're doing as far as that activity is concerned, and enough for you to not just survive, but to have a pleasantly decent and honorable life with a certain degree of dignity. Na sa pagbanat na buto, as they say, nagagamit yan para nga pagtulong sa bahay. And perhaps in some small manner, it could even be equated with just having the family back again to the basic units at home, working together and having the children around and so forth, instead of leaving for abroad, working in some strange place, being abused by employers, and so many other things that go with it besides. And all of the, sometimes illegal transport, and sometimes some illicit relationships that happen both abroad and even here with couples being separated from each other. Malungkot, ngunit tinatanggap. Bakit? Sapagkat kailangan yung pera. And that should not be the end all. Where are we as far as that's concerned? And now we come to the activity that we have just launched yesterday. Oh, the FIBA, athletics, sports. How is it that long, long ago, it was so important that sports activities begin in the barangay? Andiyan na naman tayo. In the little towns out there, in the, well, sa America, they call it the ghetto. Pag titingnan natin, halimbawa, yung mga nagcha-champion sa boxing at ano, hindi sila galing sa Forbes Park, hindi sila doon nakatira, hindi sila nakatira sa mga villages. Saan sila? Doon sa mga kanto, sa mga eskinita, sa mga maliliit na basketball court, doon sa mga probinsya. What am I trying to say? Where are we as far as sports is located? Where are we as far as the athletes are located? Ilang beses na lang sila sabi, we should start from the countryside. Andyan ang open space. They could be the runners. Sa Africa, halimbawa, my God, they have the entire Sahara Desert or whatever it is, the long spread of their country where they could run from the plains to the mountains and back. Ang dami niya na pwedeng gawin at gamitin para matrain ng mga athletes. Now we have the FIBA, for instance. Nako, basketball sport, pero kailangan nga balikan natin yung pagkain sa lamesa para tumangkad yung ating mga kabataan. Be that as it may, marami namang ibang sports. You have football, you have soccer, you have other sports where you could excel. Remember how it was that even in, ano bang tawag dyan, sa pagro-row ng boat, you have all of this contests. We could do that. Ang gagaling, ang sisik, ang makikisig ang mga muscles ng ating mga kabataan. Again, this brings to fore, as the President has always announced, giving impetus, giving support to the athletes, but it has to be spread out really all the way to the neighborhood where you are located. Saan pwedeng kunin yung mga, yan, sila Pacquiao, saan ang galing yan? Remember how it was when he started. Nagbebenta siya ng sampagita, aabot hanggang sa Bulacan para lang kumita ng konti at may patala sa kanyang nanay sapagkat nag-uumpisa na pala siya mag-training sa boxing. We have so many of this, hundreds of them, thousands of them, in little towns, in little cities, in little families. Where are we? Where are they? So those are the locations where I've said we can really begin from the baseline, from the family unit, from the neighborhood, from the community, and from there spread out to the country, to the world, as a matter of fact, because there we also find the talents that we have, the talents in music, in drama, in theater, in dance. Ang gagaling natin. Sa music na lang, my goodness. You have Alea Salonga. You have, in piano, you have all of this winning international awards. You have Cecilica, you have Rowena Arrieta, you have the Bolipata Prado, and several others. Sunico, for instance, all of these geniuses on the keyboard, on the piano, on the violin, on the cello. And then you have the dances. Ang galing din natin dyan. And of course, music. Everywhere in the world, whenever there are all of these contests, etc., when it is the Filipino that is there on stage, you should see the applause that they receive. Sapagkat, well, talaga namang mahilig umawit. Everywhere, in every corner for that matter, when the sun sets, you already have them, well, a little tuba, or whatever it is. But they sing, they enjoy. Karaoke, nako. But beyond that, of course, you have the talents and the artistry of all of these geniuses among our people. Where are we? The Cultural Center was built by Mrs. Marcos precisely to be the sanctuary of the Filipino spirit, the Filipino soul that is creative enough to be able to produce the great works in music, in song, in dance, in drama, lahat yan. So all of this you could see if you could just locate where are we. And from there, what have we done? What can we do? Ang hirap nga pag minsan na lahat aasa na lang tayo sa sinasabi ng pamahalaan o itong sinasabi ng gobyerno and so forth. But even then, we also have to ask them, where are you when it comes to giving support to this homegrown industries, homegrown artistry, homegrown and self-reliant activities that are productive enough to bring out the best in the Filipino. Yun ang parating sinasabi ng ating presidente, to bring out the best, ang bagong Pilipinas. Where are we as far as that's concerned? What is the connect between what is being pronounced 3 times or 4 times a day? You have the Junior Marcos speaking at so many events, so many activities, and so many pronouncements that are being celebrated, commemorated. You have all of them actually being broadcast on mainstream media and on, of course, not just television, radio, but also in print. And we read this on every day. And of course, in several aspects on Facebook and Instagram, we see them. Where are we as far as that connect is concerned? Are we actually appreciating all of this? Do we understand what is being done and what is being said? Are we able to translate the presidential pronouncement into programs and projects that affect us and that we could utilize? When we speak, for instance, of a land for the landless in the agrarian reform program, which was started long time ago, my goodness, in the 70s even. And now you are returning the land to them, the kind of titles that they would have. But what is it that was not done before? Is it not the same that they were also given titles to the land? 7 hectares, is this sufficient? Or do we need, but where are we as far as those 7 hectares are concerned? And now that you have this emancipation, as they call it, that whatever else you owe will now be emancipated. Excuse na yan, absuelto na. But going back to the land, going back to the fish pond, going back to the lakes and the rivers, is there enough support? Where are we as far as being connected to all the programs and to all the pronouncements of the assistance that ought to be given to that most important sector of our, not just our political system, not just our government system, but our life system, as you would call it, the foundation of it all. Again, back to the family. How many of the families, how many of the grandchildren, the great-grandchildren of the farmers and fisher folk of the earlier years are back to the land or to the rivers, to their boats? Enough assistance are being given to them. The president has announced this so many times. Fish ports have also been added in several areas of our country. And then, of course, you have the entire eastern seaboard. You have the entire Pacific Ocean right beside us. That also could be a source of all the fish products that our fisher folk could start harvesting sea creatures from that particular area. Instead of being water cannoned in the South China Sea to bring food to that boat out there in Ayungin, and my goodness, you have what? The entire Pacific Ocean on the other side, where you don't have any islets, shoals, rocks, etc., and where you have the Philippine rice, as a matter of fact, now named after the original Benham rice, where the continental shelf from Luzon and several areas even in the Visayas, extending all the way into, a great number of kilometers into the Pacific Ocean. And that continental shelf, as has been already pronounced and determined, is rising a few, I don't know how you measure this, centimeters or so every year. So a time will come, perhaps in 2 generations from our time now, that entire continental shelf will be part of our islands, and that will be an extended Philippines, for that matter, and part of the country, of our sovereign land, of our territorial ownership, without having to come into dispute with other countries, because out there, it's just the largest body of water on the planet Earth, and that's the Pacific Ocean, where the Philippine rice is open for the fisher folk to go and explore and harvest the creatures of the sea and the ocean that could feed our people from that particular area. And then, of course, added to that would be, as I've said, the component of investments for canneries, cold storages, etc. And speaking of investments, That is still what we await. The investments coming locally from our billionaires who are already involved in so many industries, and investments coming from abroad as the result of the travels undertaken by our junior president, who has already pledged that all of this people that and presidents and aid offices and organizations that he has addressed are now not just interested but are already at the doorstep knocking to come in. But then, of course, other areas of concern, where are we as far as their coming in is concerned, where we are to look into our power sector, our water system, our peace and order, and so many other things besides. So there you have it. Where are we as far as that's concerned? But be that as it may, we have gone a long way. From the time of the early outbursts of the Katipunan, as a matter of fact, just yesterday, August 25, is one marked historical day that was already the launch of the Katipunan, where the supposedly cedulas or residencia certifico ng mga what were we called then? Mga Indios of the Filipinos were torn, so that at that particular moment, our Filipino revolutionaries declared their independence from the colonizer, Spain. 375 years at the time, that was August 25. A short-lived revolution, if you would call it that, but nonetheless an announcement to the whole of the world that here you have a colonized people that declared their independence from foreign rule, be that as it was, short-lived. And then, of course, came another colonizing power, the Americans, that bought us from Spain for how much? $20 million. And we were not even a party to the Treaty of Paris, which ceded us to the United States of America as a colony for about 45 years or so, until we were granted by the United States of America, supposedly, our independence in 1946. But then again, we could see the tentacles of Uncle Sam still connected to many of our programs, processes, activities that are somehow still part of the American hegemony in this part of the world. And I don't want to go into the details of what's happening into the South China Sea. My other partner, Adok Paglinawan, has been quite eloquent and articulate about this. And he has all the document and, of course, the sourcing as far as that's concerned. But I just spoke of today's question of where are we from the home we are supposed to be located at birth, all the way until we look at the world through the eyes of our foreign policy and through your eyes as far as the overseas workers are concerned. Oh, incidentally, our deepest condolences to Susan Ople, a good friend to si Toots. And of course, as we've said, the world at large that is waiting and knocking at our doors, as our junior president has mentioned time and again, because that, I think, is one way of having investments coming in to our country and helping out in the areas which need help the most, and that is agricultural production, the industries that will have to be continued and refurbished and established, because we are a country full of this wealth of natural resources just waiting, not just to be discovered because we already know where they are, but to be developed for the benefit of our people. Where are we? That's exactly where we are. So, do we have reactions from some of our messages? Yes. Magandang gabi po. Watching from Daman. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Carlos Jomar Lim, mabuhay Madam Rita at programa nyo. Salamat. Evelyn Pedersen, gusto sanang makinig kaso hindi ko maintindihan lahat. Oh dear, kailangan talagang magtagalog pa ako. Ang dami kasing salita sa English, ang hirap i-translate sa salita sa English. Oo, hirap i-translate. Ako, hirap mag-translate. Pasensya po. Virgilio Villanueva, 11 to like and 9 minutes late. Good afternoon. Sorry, late ka. Hala, you can repeat the broadcast. Pwede pa naman yan sa YouTube. Jinky Bell watching from Germany. Guten Abend, guten Morgen, guten Nacht. Nixon Hitchhiker, very educational, Miss Rita. Maraming salamat. Marivicta Ndiama, hello po, Miss Rita. Hope na oh dear. Sino ba si Budulman? I don't know. I don't know the identity of the person you're talking about. Amparo Consuelo, who exactly and where's the person the police is supposed to arrest? Does he have a blackmail information against the police? Ayada. That's exactly what we were talking about. Where are we? As far as that's concerned, kailangan magsalita na yung mga witnesses dyan. And of course, we have to revisit the connection of local government units with the police department. Please ma'am, kayo na ang magparating na magtinda rin ang kadiwa ng generic maintenance drugs. Oo nga po. You are so correct and that's a very good idea. I'm 71 and inflation is eating up my pension. Pabuti po kayo may pension. Ako po, 80 na. Ay, naku po. Frances Lazo, hi po Ma'am Rita. Oy, my idol. Mr. Lazo, salamat. Clarice Notario, hello po Ma'am Rita. Brilliant speaker. Oh, thank you very much. Brilliant, ang ibig sabihin, kumikislap-kislap yun. Leonila Discaya, hello po. Hello there, Leonila. GQ Shariam, good afternoon, Miss Rita. Good afternoon sa'yo. Jerilyn Laurente, Di Malibot. Uy, ang ganda ng apelido mo. Di Malibot. BBM failed to sustain an affordable prices for the Philippines. Siguro talagang pinag-aaralan pa lahat ng mga kinakailangan gawin para ma-sustain ang affordable price. Sa ngayon, wala pang affordable price talaga po. Sa totoo lang. Pa-sustain, yan po siguro ang kailangan nilang ayusin. Celia Rodero, hello po Ma'am Rita, palagi ako nanonood. Oy, salamat po Celia. Maribel Tiberio Ausiel, good morning po. Good morning din. Jigs Calix, good health for you, Carita. We support you. Thank you very much. Angelito Makabuhay, ang ganda ng apelido mo. Pangil ng batas at hindi malambot na pabubudo ang ipinaglaban namin mga OFW. Nasaan na yun? Harapan na sinasabutayan ng mga ulupong. Oh my dear. Yes, indeed. Kailangan talaga itayo natin ang bandila natin dyan sa mga ibang bansa na yan. Kaya sabi ko nga, where are we? We stand as the Filipino, proud and with dignity, and we deserve the honor that we actually have worked on for so many centuries. So that's it. Maraming salamat for having joined me. This is Rita Gadi for the Chronicles.